Okay, it should be recording video. By the way, sometimes I can't see the chat very well, so if just kind of speak out, be very outspoken, you know, like do something to get my attention, like insult me or something, roast me, be like, hey, I need to know the answer to this. And then I'll be able to get to you. Otherwise, this tiny little icon appears with a chat thing hidden. It's just, I don't know why they don't improve this in Zoom, but that's another story. Okay, so anyway, it should be recording. Please let me know if it's not. So if you go to the Look and Feel tab, there are a couple of interesting things to do. Now, preferences, you could just go to Live Preferences or Command Comma. If you go to the Look and Feel tab, you can actually change the theme. Now we're getting to real advanced synthesis stuff right now. Well, it's just actually, it's silly, as silly as it is, I actually think it's important to calibrate this correctly because you want to be in a good mode when you're in your workflow. So you can set your theme. You can also, for the sake of this class, I'm kind of changing the UI to be bigger. Also, in general, my eyesight isn't the best, I don't think, so I just like bigger things. So that's something to keep in mind with, okay? Talked about zoom, talked about the color scheme. You can kind of, there's a lot of stuff to explore. We're going to discuss more about the preferences over time, but you might just want to take a little look at this. Okay, now here is an important thing that I want to save when talking about, okay? First, I guess I want to talk about the difference between tracks and clips in Ableton, okay? Now, the way OneNote works, I have to create a page for these subpages, so this page is kind of silly. You really click the subpage to find the information that you're looking for. Okay, sorry. I want to talk about views first, okay? From the most big picture perspective, there are a few views to be aware of in Ableton, okay? There's session view. If you click this little button in your Ableton project, you will get directed to session view. And this particular view, we're not going to talk about it in great detail. It's going to be discussed at a later time down the line. But basically, it allows you to play things without committing to a specific order. It allows you to play different little clips out of order in different ways. Now, this is something that's very interesting, right? This is something that sets Ableton apart from other pieces of software. It had historically, and now other softwares are catching up. But essentially, this allows you to play a particular audio clip, and then play another audio clip, and then play this audio clip again, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to play this audio clip now, and then I'm going to play this. You can play things out of order. You can experiment with things. For example, I'll just drag a little clip here. I'll talk more about all this stuff. Nothing super exciting here, but I can like play this stuff out of order, right? I'm like, oh, I want to play this now. I want to play this now. It allows you to have some flexibility in doing stuff live, because let's say you're live and you're like, oh, at this particular point in time, I'm going to push this button when the drummer does this thing, and I'm going to push this button. Pretty dramatic, right? And at that point in time, you can kind of do things on the fly, okay? Now I'm going to save this conversation for a future lecture, because for now I want to talk about the more straightforward, what I think to be the more straightforward view in Ableton is, which is arrangement view. Now arrangement view is if you click this little thing right here in your Ableton screen, you'll go to arrangement view. And this is more traditional. Like if you've come from GarageBand or Logic or FL Studio or wherever else you've come from, it allows you to see it allows you to play a piece of music chronologically. So the earlier events happen to the left, the later events happen to the right, and you have this kind of chronology, right, of events. It's pretty straightforward. And also, it's important that you click this button too, for reasons that basically that button you have to click if you've played something in session view, it'll still continue to play in arrangement view if you don't click that button. But I don't want to confuse you too much. Just understand that if you're in arrangement view, it's pretty straightforward. You have a timeline of events, earlier events on the left, later events on the right, okay? Then there is detail view. Now, detail view is this whole thing down here, right? But incidentally, if you want to switch between arrangement view and session view, you just press tab. Session view, arrangement view, session view, arrangement view. What view am I on? Someone say it, say it.
Session.
Session view. Wow, nice guys. All right, what view am I on?
Arrangement.
You guys are fast learners. Okay, fantastic. Okay, then there is detail view. Now, detail view is this whole thing down here. Now, detail view actually collapses into two different views. One of those is clip view, which basically has musical sequences, okay? You can kind of, that's where clip view allows you to see the different musical sequences, okay? Device view allows you to see the devices that make those musical sequences. So you can kind of imagine, right? You need some sort of generator to make sound. Like you need a piano to actually make a sound, a piano sound, right? But then it doesn't mean anything if the pianist doesn't play any notes, right? You need the pianist to play some notes. So you select the instrument in device view, and then the actual things that the pianist plays are in clip view, okay? So those are really important views. And those aren't just my views. This isn't just my point of view. No, these are very important. These are very important views, okay? Now, if you want to switch between those two views, you press Shift and Tab. Now, right here, I don't have a clip selected, nor do I have a device at all. So it's just switching between these two views where there's nothing on it. But in time, this is a really useful shortcut. Or you can just, alternatively, you can just click down here. If you want to click, I most often actually just click. This is, see the device view, the clip view. Okay, and by the way, if there are any questions, just interrupt me, okay? Great. Then there's the info view. This is a really important view because in the bottom left of the screen, anything you click on, it'll kind of tell you a helpful little ditty on it, right? So if I'm just hanging all over a specific thing, notice in the bottom left, the help view, the info view, kind of shows you relevant information, right? It's kind of cool, right? So it's very helpful, especially if you get a very complicated device and you're like, I have no idea what this parameter does on this device. It'll kind of clue you into what particular thing you need to do in order to make the device work correctly without having to go on YouTube or anything. Okay? Info view. Okay, I'm just going to hover over different views. What view is this?
Info.
Info view.
Oh, info.
Arrangement?
Are you sure about that? Yeah, it was arrangement. And now I switched it over to session. All right, great. All right, awesome. Okay, there's another really important view. That's the browser view, okay? The browser view allows you, oh yeah, you can see I didn't have a complete sentence here. The browser view allows you to do something, of which I did not fully type out, but it allows you to do so much. I was stopped in my tracks in awe at all the things you could do. And really what it can allow you to do is it allows you to select devices or clips. And one really useful thing we're going to talk about later is you can click sounds, for instance, and just search a particular sound like violin in the browser. And then lo and behold, while your computer freezes, it'll find a bunch of devices or a bunch of categories in which the sound exists, right? So it's like, here's a violin sound. Beautiful, right? Right? And then you could simply click and drag this particular device onto your arrangement. We're going to just stick to arrangement view for a while. So in this case, I'm just dragging this device onto the arrangement, and all of a sudden, check this out. Whereas before, by the way, are your silhouettes appearing in the video? Like, is there a big square blocking device view right now? Oh, great. Okay, awesome. Okay, so as you see right here, I'm in device view. You see this big violin device just sitting here ready to make some noise, right? Okay, so I have a keyboard set up right here. Is it calibrated? Sorry, I'm having a technical difficulty right here. Why is that happening? Okay, this is part of the game, guys. Experiencing MIDI. Oh, well, I guess I can save that conversation for another time. I'll just finish with this particular conversation. So I dragged a violin device onto the track. And essentially, you can see that there's a violin instrument on this in device view. And there's no clip currently made in clip view. Okay? Okay, so now we've talked about a lot of views. Now, you might be disappointed to find out that there's no reference to the view, TV program, the view in Ableton. It's really disappointing that this program didn't make a mention or any connection to it. So what can you do? I guess all you can do is watch the view and just lament that Ableton didn't have the foresight. Anyway, transport bar. Let's get to the transport bar. So the transport bar basically is a very important part of Ableton real estate, okay? It allows you to play your track. It allows you to stop your track. It allows you to record your track, right? These are kind of global symbols that you might be familiar with, right? Play, stop, record. It allows you to turn on the metronome, and it allows you to change the speed of the metronome. And it also allows you to do some other things as well. But these are probably the most important things that you'll need to get started. You might want to also, I guess I could add one more thing, change time signature. If I change the time signature, you could see that the time signature, you could do something like that, right? The time signature gets changed by this particular dial right here. So I could go to 3/4 or 4/4. Turn on the metronome by doing that. Okay. I could play the arrangement by doing that. Play the arrangement with the metronome by doing that. I could stop the arrangement by doing that. Okay? These are really important because ultimately you're going to want to record something or play something. You can't do it without using the transport. So, yeah, this is the problem with summer's 3-hour classes. You might be totally saturated by now. I don't know. We're gonna eventually take a break where you get to actually try this stuff out, so that we can actually be a little more hands-on with it. I also encourage you to have the software open while I'm doing this too, if it's not too jarring to kind of go back and forth. Alternatively, you could just watch my video afterwards, but then you're just watching another YouTube video, right? I'm part of the problem now. All right, so I guess try to absorb as much as you can, and this will always be there for you. And you're going to have to use this knowledge when you're doing your homework anyway, through screenshots. I'm going to make you prove that you actually know what you're doing in these terms, just so that no one falls behind. So, but you know, be ready because it's going to be a lot of stuff really fast. So can't help you in that regard. Well, like, just contact me. We can schedule a meeting over Zoom for office hours or whatever you guys want to do. I'm pretty flexible. Transport, we already talked about the view. Great television program. Keyboard shortcuts. I think I want to hold off on this. I want to talk now about tracks versus clips. I alluded to this earlier, and now we're going to get down to it, okay? We've talked about all these big picture views, right? Now, tracks and clips are really the way you store musical data. They're really important to talk about. And so an interesting track basically has a particular sound, right? A piano track sounds like a piano because it has some sort of piano device. We've talked about that, right? But it also has a sequence of notes, right? And so you actually have to play something, and the pianist's notes get recorded onto a clip. We've talked about this as well, right? So the track is basically a container for both clips and notes, or devices and clips. So essentially, we're talking about device view and clip view. Those are really pertinent to when you're working with tracks, okay? Now, bear with me for 1 second because I had this weird diagnostic error earlier. I just want to start putting something into the track, onto a track, and then start playing along and making something for you guys. Computer's being a little freezy. Okay, so I guess right now there's some mysterious behavior where, oh great, there's a good amount of latency. Should I explain what I just did? Maybe. I'll explain in time, but I'll give you a little explanation for what I just did. So, actually, essentially when I'm changing this option in settings, if I go to preferences and I go to audio and I change the buffer size, basically that's just deciding how much time elapses between me pressing a note on my keyboard and the sound coming out. In fact, it's not having the effect I'm expecting because I think Zoom is doing something different with the whole delay of things. But anyway, this stuff will settle in over time. I guess for now, I just want to explain to you how a track is both a container for devices and clips, okay? So I'm going to delete all these tracks. And I'm going to create a new track. And a way I can create a new track is by going to Create, or I can go to File. No, sorry, I'm not thinking of the right device at all. I know the shortcut. It's Command T. Incidentally, if you forget where something is, you can go to the Help and search. And if you type in track, it'll point you to the relevant menu item. For me, I'm so used to this keyboard shortcut Command T that I just go with that. But so anyway, I'm going to create a MIDI track, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my browser, okay? And I guess I'm going to talk about this aspect of, oh, sorry, my computer's struggling running Zoom and Ableton at the same time. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about the browser, but in the browser, you can experiment with different instruments. Now, traditionally, a piece of music has these kinds of instruments. It has a bass instrument, it has a chordal instrument, it has a melodic instrument, it has drums, it has effects. I might have missed something, but I think in general, if you have this, you have a pretty good track full of stuff, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to go along what this is telling me to do, which I've told it to do. So what you can do is you can go into the browser, and let's say I just want to search bass for bass instruments. Well, I could go to the actual search bar and I can type in bass, or if you go to the subpage, this is kind of a good place to look for bass sounds. If you click sounds in the browser and then you click bass, it's not the only bass sound that you can use, but you can get a cool bass sound from that, okay? So I'll go to the browser. I'm in sounds. By the way, I have to clear what I've typed because it'll limit what I can search for, right? And now more results appear. I'll collapse everything. I'll click bass. I'll expand bass. And now you see all these different bass sounds. Right? So what I'm going to do, I know I talked to you about how you can create a new track using the menu, but you can actually bypass that step by just dragging one of these particular instruments onto the arrangement. And notice how when it likes it, it doesn't complain. It just looks like this triangular arrow with a little file icon next to it. And once I let go of the mouse, what you'll see is a sight to be seen and heard. And oh, this is an omnisphere sound. Great. Okay. This is actually a sound that doesn't come built in with Ableton, but it doesn't really matter. So what I have is this, if I go to device view, I see this whole, what probably to you might look like a very complicated array of devices. And to be honest, it looks a little complicated to me too. But this is the basic framework to think about it. I've just created an instrument that sounds like this. Right? That particular sound, I think, whatever, I'm just going to change it. This particular sound that I've just found, this is the device that that pertains to that particular sound. This is the device that makes this sound, okay? Now, what I could do is I could double click somewhere on the timeline, on the actual grid, okay? And I could actually create some notes. I could put some notes down. And notice actually how this looks like a piano, a sideways piano, in case you didn't notice that, right? This looks like a sideways piano. What I could do, this is not really my preferred way of doing it, but I'll show you how to do it, is click this headphone icon. And I'll put this on the OneNote so you can actually remember this. I didn't get a chance to put everything on OneNote. I can click this headphone icon, and now I can start inputting notes. Right? Now if I actually click, if I move the transport to the beginning of that clip, you see this masterpiece that I've just created, right? It's pretty astounding stuff, right? So this is a clip. We've talked about clips before. Now we have both a device and we have a clip. Now the clip in arrangement view, if you're just looking at it on the actual arrangement, looks like this. But if you actually double click it, you can see the clip fully expanded and you could mess around with the individual notes. Now, there are certain things to know about this grid, okay? There are some very useful things to know about the grid. In fact, if there's one thing to become really expert in, it's the grid. I know people tell you to get off the grid all the time. I get it, but we've been in quarantine for a while, and I kind of want to get on the grid again. So here we have the grid. It's so important, right? And the reason it's important is it allows you to organize all your ideas in a particular sequence, right? Now, what you see is the grid on clip view right here, but you also see the grid on arrangement view right here, right? They're both following the convention of a grid, but one of them follows the arrangement of the entire composition as a whole, right? The other one just follows the arrangement of that particular clip, right? So in our case, you could see the same thing. Like I might have another clip over here, the same clip incidentally, and I'm like, oh, I want to play this, right? And then I want this to happen, right? Why didn't anything happen there? Well, there's no device on this clip, so it's not going to play anything, right? If I go to device view, it'll say no device, right? Here I have a device on a clip. That's why it's playing something. Okay. So there are some useful things to know about this. For one, so I have to keep moving your Zoom profiles around so I can manage my screen. There are some useful shortcuts. that I use all the time. In fact, these are the shortcuts I probably use more than any shortcut in Ableton. And a lot of people don't even know these shortcuts. So this is my pro tip to you guys, all right? Command 1 or Control. If I say Command, I mean Control on Windows. So if I press Command 1, notice how the grid, it's kind of probably, it might be a little hard to see, but do you notice how the grid resolution is changing? Does everyone see that? It's getting a little bit more result. It's getting finer, right? Like you can actually see in this corner, it's saying it's 1/32 notes, 32nd note resolution. Now it's 16th note resolution. Now it's 8th note resolution, right? So I'm pressing Command 2 to decrease the resolution, and I'm pressing Command 1 to increase the resolution. Okay? Those are really useful. Because for instance, earlier, like I was like at this really zoomed in spot where I was trying to type in these notes, and these notes didn't sound very good to begin with, but they just, it was just too much resolution. Like I didn't need something super complicated. I just wanted like 4 notes, right? At this particular point in time, I'm just going to find a good old tried and true friendly sound. I'm just going to search for my friendly hip hop sub bass, because I just like that sound. Sorry, my computer, I'm not the only one who has this problem, but Zoom and Ableton doesn't like to work hand in hand sometimes, so apologize for these little wheels of death. But in the meantime, you know, contemplate what I just told you. And if you have any questions, this is a great time to ask. Never mind. Okay, so here we go. Hip hop sub bass. Okay. This is part of the process too, guys. Just getting used to the frustration of your computer overloading and getting ready to crash. All right, so I'm going to drag this. And incidentally, if I drag this device over an existing clip, or sorry, over an existing track that has an existing device on it, it'll replace the device that was on that track with the sound that I just put on it without changing the clip. So that's really useful. So I deleted all those notes. That's why they disappeared, right? And now I'm at a lower resolution. Right? So I can actually do things in a more manageable way, right? I can just input these notes and all is well, right? Maybe I'll get a sound that's a little bit louder by default. I'm just going to look for a sound. I think one of the problems is I have so many sounds, and I think that's part of the problem when it's trying to search for these sounds. This might be a good point to bring up the favorites. What you could do in Ableton is you could assign particular sounds that you use frequently, which I haven't done in this version of Ableton, to favorites. So for instance, if I go to, oh man, come on computer. Okay, this will actually make my life a little bit better, I think. So if I do this and I just right click it and I make it a favorite like blue for whatever, now, oh gosh, does not like me. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna put it as the red favorite. Okay. So now it appears right here, right? That'll prevent my computer from crashing every single time. So once again, I'm just going to replace this particular sound that I had with that. What's interesting about this is I can actually, right now what I'm doing is I'm actually playing this on my keyboard. And the way I'm playing this instrument on my keyboard is by clicking, well, there's a couple of configuration steps you have to do. First of all, you'll want to make sure that this red record enable button is checked. on the track. So you want to record enable your track for it to actually be able to receive input from your keyboard. Okay, so this is a really important button. I'll make sure to make a slide on this on OneNote. Okay. The other thing, just for those who are curious, and I think this is good to probably talk about on day one, I actually recommend getting a little MIDI controller. They're not that expensive, and you don't have to be an expert keyboard player to enjoy the benefits of having a keyboard. It's just, in fact, it'll kind of help you with your keyboard playing if that's something you're interested in doing, and it'll make production a little bit easier to achieve. So a lot of times when I'm doing stuff, I'll be using my keyboard because it's just more intuitive for me to just type in stuff on my keyboard and just play it in instead of typing it out, which I could type it out directly, each note individually, but it's a little bit tedious for me to do so. So I guess the long and short story of it will be put on OneNote. But if you're kind of curious, I think like a 25 key keyboard, USB keyboard will come in handy for your Ableton enjoyment. And it's not that difficult to get set up. This is one of those things that's really difficult to talk about over Zoom because it involves plugging things in and doing things like that. But ultimately, if you plug it in correctly, it should register MIDI. And you'll be able to see if it's registering MIDI through this top right little indicator right here. And that's showing that it's registering MIDI. And right now it's registering MIDI. I'm playing it, but nothing is actually selected to be played. So I actually have to record, enable this track. All right, there we go. And now what I've got is my keyboard instrument ready to interface with Ableton. Now, this is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but it's something I want to show you, and I'll talk about it more over time. By the way, please don't be shy. If there's any questions, like other people probably have the same question. In fact, I probably have the same question. So just please speak up. And
so for the MIDI controller, I just like quickly looked it up. I don't see like any that are that cheap. I see like upwards of like 70 bucks.
Yeah, okay. So what I recommend in that case is I recommend getting a used controller. Like for instance, I'll just quickly go on eBay. If I look up a 25 key controller, I've had really good luck with eBay. I think you can get one for a little less than that. Like this one, right? Well, it's bid and fast, but something like this, you might be able to get for $30 or $40. I know that's an entry point. That's a considerable entry point. It's less money than 70, but it starts getting more expensive. But I think it's a really good investment. All things said. Like something like this is this particular controller is fantastic. This M-Audio Oxygen 8 version 2, 25 key. If it really sells for 14 bucks, it's great because you've got 8 knobs, you've got 25 keys, you've got this pitch bend wheel, you've got the transport directly built on the keyboard, so you can actually control playing and stopping and rewinding directly on the keyboard. It's less than 20 bucks, provided you can get it for that price. And look at that positive feedback. I mean, come on. So yeah, I think that it's really valuable, and I encourage you to do this. It'll also, as a person who also advocates piano knowledge, because I'm a piano teacher, like piano's my main instrument, I'm prejudiced, and I will always make this recommendation. I think it's just cool. And you can always get, and consequently, you can, if you have a keyboard, like if you have a piano keyboard from when you were a kid, like one of these things, like just a big piano keyboard, it probably has a MIDI output. Like, see, I had a student who didn't know that, and they bought a 25 key keyboard, and they were like, I was like, wait a second, you could have used this 88 key keyboard and done the same thing. And they didn't understand that at first. And now they do. And it's just, basically you can plug in any keyboard that you have that's digital into Ableton, and it'll interact with it. So if you have one from like when you were growing up, just have it shipped to your dorm or something. Well, wherever you are, I guess you might not be at your dorm at the moment, but so that's a really cool plus with MIDI. Granted, some of those particular keyboards need to, you know what? I want to start creating a list of, oh, these are some lyrics I'm writing. Okay, all right. I want to keep tabs of things to write about on OneNote. MIDI controllers, chord arm. If there's anything else I forgot, just let me know and I'll put it here, and I'll create notes on this after class so you have a jumping off point. Yeah, so I'll talk more about that as well. But yeah, they do range in price. You can get things like a full, if you're like, well, if I'm spending $80 on 25 keys, maybe I should just buy a full 88 key keyboard for $200 if it's in your budget. So there are like many considerations to make. We have the space. There's all kinds of considerations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Of course. So I guess in my case, we'll just create something simple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, sorry, I keep remembering things that I haven't made OneNote slides for, and I'm like, okay, I need to make a slide on this, but I'm a little OCD in that way. So this little brace right here is the loop brace. This is an essential kind of part of the arrangement grid view. It's also on the clip grid view. You can actually see different ranges in which you could loop selections. Basically, you can change the selection of a particular passage by messing around with these, and you can move them around. And what's useful about this is if you change these, you can kind of loop over a particular passage over and over again, right? So I'm looping over this passage over and over again, right? And I can like play something over that, right? And I can record over it, where there's a great deal of latency, so that didn't come out right at all. But that'll give you a chance to just record a part over and over and over again. So for instance, these are just 3 notes. Something that just came to mind. I don't know why these came to mind. Maybe I've been watching Space Jam recently or something. I don't know why it came to mind. But anyway, I love Space Jam. All right, so anyway, here it is. And I could record it, right? I could just click record, and it'll start recording. Okay, so right now it's doing this funny thing. It's actually not so funny. It starts overwriting what I just did if I'm not fast enough, right? So I'll do it again to show you what happened. I'll zoom in too so you can kind of see a little more of what's going on. So I'll talk about shortcuts as well. Right? Notice how on the second pass it overrides what I just did, right? I may not want that. If you want to overdub what you've done, you can click this little overdub button. So now I can just do it and then layer stuff. Right? Now I don't have to worry about it so much. I can just create a loop, and if I don't like it, I can delete it. I can go back and do it again. This is just one possible workflow. There's 1,000, but this is one workflow that might work for you. So I have this little bass thing, right? Right? It's just a little bass thing. Notice also that the timing might have been a little off. I guarantee you the timing was a little off because there's a great deal of delay and latency, which is causing these notes to come in a little later than I would have expected them to. But this grid is set super resolved. Like, this is a really important thing. I can't emphasize this enough. When you're working with MIDI, you want to find the right grid resolution to work with, right? This does not make sense for me to use this grid resolution right now, right? It's got too much resolution. Let me zoom out a little bit. This makes a little more sense. Do you see how there's less lines, right? this gives me a chance to see how close I was to where I wanted it to be. Like I might have, like, look at this. Uh-oh, I was, oh, can you see me zooming in like that? Probably not. Look at how late I was. Oh, pitiful. I can move that note over here. Ah, there we go, right? I can do that. Well, oh, maybe I should put this note over here. That's actually incorrect. I actually need a bigger grid resolution than this. Anyway, you have to find the right appropriate grid resolution for what you're trying to do. It's not a really easy question for me to answer as to how you do that. There's some music theory built in, or there's just a feeling. Like, for instance, you might be tempted to just be like, I'm going to has anyone heard of quantization? Quantization? Quantization is when you take something and you just basically approximate it to a specific grid, right? You're like, oh, what if I just quantize this to this grid? It'll fix everything, right? I'll just quantize this. Nothing could go wrong, right? I'll just quantize it. Quantize settings, I'll just quantize to the current grid. It changed the music substantially, right? And not what I wanted. I wanted the da, 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 da. Everybody dance now, da, da, da. That's what I wanted, right? Now, I wasn't getting that. So I have to find the right grid resolution. Like I have to like basically, what I do in my workflow personally is and I'll talk more about this. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a little bit of a top-down approach right now, but I understand this might be fast. We'll talk more about it in time. And I'll give you an opportunity to read about this, but I'm going into quantize settings to change how my quantization works. And I'm basically quantizing to the current grid. It makes my life a little easier because I'm like, oh, I just want to, no matter what I do, I just have to change my grid setting and then it'll quantize to that grid. So let me try quantizing to this grid. That's better, right? That's almost perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Oh, wait, no, this is wrong. I'll tell you why it's wrong. I'm in tuplet mode right now. This will be right. Okay, we talked about command 1 will increase the resolution of the grid, right? We talked about command 2 decreasing the resolution of the grid. Command 3 will tripletize the grid. This is an important thing. I just accidentally was on triplets. Okay? If you don't know music theory, what that means is you see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplets basically makes it, that's a multiple of 2. A triplet becomes a multiple of 3. So if I press command 3, it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you see that, how that happened? So that could work for some things, like jazz uses a triplet grid. Ducka, 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 ducka. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ducka, ding, chinga, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But this particular song doesn't. It uses 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The long and the short story of it is that you want to make sure your grid settings are correct. Both how deeply zoomed in you are and whether or not you're using a triplet grid or not. So in this particular case, now I'm not using a triplet grid, and I'm going to try quantizing this again. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted, right? It might be, you know, that's exactly what I was trying to do. This fits in to the specific grid points that I was looking for. This is like such an important thing to become masterful at. I can't emphasize this enough. It'll drive you crazy if you don't get good at this, because you'll be like, why did this happen? I swear it was like, if you don't spend the time to understand how this works, it'll pay a lot of dividends in the future. Okay? So essentially, let's go back to the breakdown of what a song basically could have, right? has a bass instrument. It has some chordal instruments, right? So there's two types of chordal playing, right? There's rhythmic chordal playing and there's atmospheric chordal playing. So you can have like right? That's more of like rhythm guitar, right? That's more percussive in nature. Whereas you could also have like a pad, right? Something that's very smooth and mellow sounding, right? So I've shown you places in the browser where you could access these different things. So for instance, for a rhythmic chordal instrument, you could click these particular headings. I don't know if I'm brave enough to do that because my computer might freeze, but I think I'm going to go for it. I have a newer version of Ableton that, like, I'm a beta tester and all my browser settings are correct, but I wanted to switch over to this because I signed a non-disclosure agreement. I can't show you that over Zoom especially. So all my browser settings are all messed up. But essentially a good practice is to start diving for sounds. In fact, one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is to, on your assignment on Thursday, one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, or whenever I ask you to turn this in, is add a screenshot of a bunch of sounds that you've added to your favorites library. I think that'll be a good thing to do, just so you start familiarizing yourself with different sounds. And I'll do the same for this version of Ableton. So let me look at a chordal instrument, like an atmospheric, or maybe a rhythmic instrument. So I'm going to go by the categories they suggested. And I think I pointed out to 3 different places: piano and keys. Maybe I'll go to piano and keys. Now, keep in mind, a piano can function both as a percussive instrument, like a funky kind of staccato if you've played piano, right? It can also be sustained. So an instrument itself can accommodate both of those kinds of styles of playing, depending on the technique you apply. So if I go to, let's say I'm so used to using the search bar, but let's say I just go to grand piano, right? And I'll just drag this onto this MIDI track. What happened to this MIDI track that just now? It didn't have a device, so it got replaced by this grand piano. So now, oh, this is too atmospheric. I wanted something a little more percussive. Okay. What's going on here? Will this work? For some reason, my piano is having a little bit of trouble. Oh, you know what? Let me just try it from square one. I'm just going to drag this on here. For some reason, my Ableton right now, my sounds aren't linked up correctly, for whatever reason. Maybe this one will work. Okay, so basically what I have here is the latency is really bothering me. Like, it's really late, and I can't do anything about it, so I'm just gonna have to suffer, and I'll quantize later. So this is like another aspect of an instrument that you could add onto your track. I added another MIDI track. This time it's kind of a percussive, rhythmic sounding sort of instrument, a piano, with a percussive attack, and I can kind of layer something on this, right? Let's play out. I'll have to adjust the delay later. Okay, I'll start recording it, right? I have to record enable that particular track, right? So that's a little bit of sort of like a housey kind of groove, getting going, right? Look at this terrible grid that I have, right? This is not suitable at all. In fact, I shouldn't have had overdub on at that particular time, because in that particular time, I just wanted to play it through once. And getting a little fancy, I'll just turn off loop, and I'll just play it once. I could turn off loop by clicking this button right here. I could just record through it. It recorded that little segment, excuse me, of music, right? Now, I want to quantize it. I think that's a good grid. If it kind of looks like it's big enough where everything kind of fits, that is kind of probably the setting you want. Like this might be too much. This might be too zoomed out. This kind of looks like the correct setting. Or maybe one more. Maybe this one. Let's see if this works. Okay, that was almost there. Why did that? I wanted that one here. It did, oh geez. Okay. Okay, there's something else I want to talk about. Clip view. This is really important. I have a particular clip here, right? I have a particular clip. I want that clip to be a loop, okay? I want it to be a loop. The reason I personally want it to be a loop is because if I make it a loop, I can use this over again in different places with greater ease. What I mean by that is this. Check out this behavior. If loop is not on, look what happens. It just basically, as I extend the boundary of this clip, nothing occurs, right? It's just basically like a wasteland of nothing, right? Whereas if I create this clip as a loop and I have it set to a specific length where I want it to be a certain length long, then that's like what I want. That's perfect. So basically, now check what happens. It just keeps repeating that over and over again. As I stretch it out, it loops that material over and over and over again for the infinite future. Okay? That's really handy, right? Because I basically did it once and I could just do it again that way, right? It's pretty nice to have it as a loop. There are other ways I could do that. I could just copy this and put it over here, for instance. I don't have to have it as a loop, but it is convenient to have it as a loop. Especially when it's good practice to get into when you get into session view, for instance, I think. But one thing to keep in mind is you're invariably going to create loops, and you're invariably going to create loops of the wrong length. That's going to happen all the time. So for instance, I was playing and I had the loop be the wrong length. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to change the end point of the loop to be the correct number of bars, right? I want it to end after this many beats, okay? So I want to take a step back and just talk about the grid yet again, okay? The grid, what the grid is really telling you is the bars and beats of that particular of the arrangement. So what this is saying is 1 is saying that this is measure 1. 1.2, this is saying it's measure 1, beat 2. This is saying measure 1, beat 3. Measure 1, beat 4. Right? That's what it's saying. Measure 1, beat 2. Measure 1, beat 3. Measure 1, beat 4. So essentially, I'm changing the length of this so that it ends right before the second measure. That's all I'm doing. This is useful to do. You might be asking yourself, well, when am I going to have to do this? You're going to have to do this all the time. So I'm just warning you about it, because you're going to invariably create loops without realizing you're creating loops, and they're invariably going to be the wrong length. So essentially, get really familiar with the grid. Get familiar with what these things mean. These represent different time points in your arrangement. And you can see them reflected the same way in the arrangement grid. Measure 1, measure 1 beat 2, measure 1 beat 3, measure 1 beat 4. It starts again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's essentially what's happening here, right? When I'm selecting the grid quantization, I'm basically selecting the quantization level to correspond with these particular beat positions to make sure that what I'm typing in makes sense with regards to what beat is happening at that particular time. So this all
there's a few questions in chat if you wanted to address those when you get a chance.
Oh yeah, of course. Thanks for letting me know. Okay. Okay. Can you quantize the end of notes so that they have more consistent lengths? Absolutely. That's actually found in quantize settings. So if I go to quantize settings, you can quantize both the start and the ends of the notes. Notice how, but you're not going to get a consistent length actually that way. Not, believe it or not. It's going to end on the grid line. Notice what happened when I just quantized that way. This one got longer, this one got shorter, right? Because it's basically finding the nearest point to quantize to. But it will quantize to a specific point in time. But you know, personally, for my own aesthetic, I don't always quantize endings because I feel like there's a natural, okay, I will warn you, when you quantize too much, it sounds unnatural. Like, it sounds too robotic and mechanical. So by leaving some things unquantized, like the endings of notes, it leaves a little bit of more humanness to your performance. So that's one kind of take on quantization. But you know, you could make everything the same length more easily once you quantize both the beginnings and ends, because, whoops. Now the endings are quantized, but now you can clearly see that this is 1 grid long, this is 3 grid long, 3 grids long. So you can just go blap, and now they're all the same length, right? It's a little easier to do. If that's your goal, I mean, you could do it multiple ways. You could do it by hand too. You can literally, they snap to the grid, so you can just do that. You can do all this stuff by hand. What is overdub? Oh yeah, musical uncanny valley. Absolutely. What is overdub doing again? Okay, so overdub basically allows you to, if you're looping something, like if you're looping a region in arrangement view using this loop switch, you could keep layering things on top of this. So for instance, let's say, just for fun, I'm going to overdub this particular region. Oh, geez, sorry. It wasn't, loop was off. That's another thing. You have to turn on loop. Notice how it became grayed out when it's off. Now it's on. Ah, I didn't click record. Right? I'm just layering things on top of it, like one step at a time. You know, right? You can layer things. There's so much latency; it's driving me crazy. But anyway, so that is basically what overdub can do for you. But what can you do for overdub? No, that's philosophical. All right, let's see. So there's a lot to say about this, and I'm afraid I've said a lot already. I think probably the best thing to do right now is to break up I have a couple of questions I was going to ask of you. I think I made too much information. Let's see. The information I made wasn't all the information I shared either. Let's see. There were some checkpoints that I was thinking about asking you about. We haven't talked about drum patterns yet, so I guess I'll quickly talk to you about drum patterns. We'll get to the next stage of this. So I have drums. I've got a chordal instrument. Let's add some drums. Okay. Now, if you go here in the browser, if you click drums in the browser, it'll expose all the drum sounds. Now, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe you can't access these drum sounds from the sounds category. I think you have to click the drums category to access the drum sounds. Okay, now what you can do is you can go to drums, and let me make things a little bit smaller. Delete this track. So right now I'm just going to rename my tracks. I'm going to right click it. I'm going to call this bass. I'm going to call this piano. I'm just going to replace this with this, right? Oh, it changed it to something a little square. That's okay. We'll leave it as it is. Okay, now let's add some drums. So we can preview drums by clicking a particular set of drums on the browser. That sounds nice. Okay, drag it on. And then what we have is something. Okay, what we have here is the same situation we had before. Now, personally, it's funny though, when I'm programming drums, I actually like, oftentimes I do often like programming drums onto a clip itself without typing it in. Sometimes I type it in too. I like both ways. So I guess I'll type it in to show you what I'm talking about. So if you want to create a new clip, you double click an empty region on the track and a clip gets created, right? You can just double click anywhere. You can extend the length. Notice how as I extend the length of the clip, it actually starts looping. So here is a perfect example. I'm so glad I talked about looping. This loop's a little too short, right? Like honestly, a drum loop this long, that's not long enough for a drum loop to really be. So we have to change the length of the drum loop to maybe be 1 measure long. So I went to the clip, and now if I drag it, the drum loop is 1 measure long, right? So this number right here is telling you how long it is. This is a way you can adjust this length. Now oftentimes I'm a little like I often just drag this to change the length, and notice how the length is changing that way too, right? There are both equivalent ways of doing it. But if you know that you want your drum length to be 1 bar long, you just basically type 1 right here in the length field, right? Okay. I'm going to make assignments for you to do all this stuff. So don't feel like you're going to forget this. I'm going to make sure you don't. So this particular bar, this particular drum loop is 1 measure long. Now, a very common thing, this goes into the realm of composition, but a very common thing to do in drums is to have kick drum be on beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, and beat 4. That's very common, right? I can lower the grid resolution even more, and you'll see beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. In fact, I could actually make this the full length. It doesn't really matter because the sound dies away by the time it gets to this point anyway. But right, another common thing that people do is they put a snare on beat 2 and 4. Right? That's a common thing that people do. The 4 on the floor, a common dance kind of kick thing, right? Another thing people do is they add hi-hats on every beat and every beat in between every beat. So like this. Now I'm distorting. It kind of sounds cool unintentionally. That actually kind of sounds cool, but it's distorting. Right? That's a common kind of drum pattern. Now you might be thinking, I want to learn more drum patterns. Well, I have something for you that I've actually been investigating myself. I've got this book for you that I put on the OneNote that basically has a bunch of drum patterns that you can experiment with. In fact, one of your homework assignments will be to create your own drum pattern. And you can use these as kind of templates. You can just program these drums and be like, oh, I want an Afro-Cuban beat. And it'll show you the notation as well, if that's something that you're interested in. And you can kind of type these things in and experiment. Like, boy, I would love to learn all these drum beats. There's just so many. I'm reading like an encyclopedia of drum patterns, right? It's so fascinating. Like, rhythm is such an incredibly interesting thing to study. So just get your hands dirty and look up some patterns in this book and just try to put these in and see if you can translate this information to make a particular drum beat, right? So I think that's basically what I wanted to talk to you about. Like the most basic of basic, it's both very basic and very complex, what I've told you already. And we're gonna keep reviewing this stuff, so don't feel like frightened, and please ask questions. Don't feel ashamed, because there's just so many different ways to do something that, like, honestly, it helps me when someone asks me a question, because I'm like, oh, I forgot about that thing. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to do. So actually, I think for now, I had more stuff I want to say, but I'm just gonna look at the syllabus really quickly. By this syllabus, and I think, okay, we drew, recorded and edited MIDI. We talked about the drum rack, not really. We used the drum rack, but we didn't really talk about it. We worked with clips, we made sounds. We stayed organized. Okay, so I think at this point, there was this checkpoint thing. What I want you all to do right now is, I think we'll break into kind of groups, and we'll also share each other's work, and we'll kind of, I want this to be a session where we're basically having a lab now, and we'll check in periodically. I'll keep talking and helping people, and different people can share their screen. In case you guys aren't familiar with how to do that, the way it works, there's a weird handshake that you have to do. For one, you have to, oh, you know what? I actually think I made an explanation on this. I'll put it on the OneNote, or no, it's probably not worth it. But what you essentially have to do is you have to share your screen, but make sure you click share computer audio when you're sharing your screen. On top of that, when you go into Ableton, you have to, it gets a little complicated, to be honest. I guess it doesn't matter that much that okay. Essentially what you have to do the way my audio is coming through to you right now is in preferences, audio, under audio, basically my audio output device is the Zoom audio device. And that's probably worth knowing how to do, because I'm sure you guys are all gonna come up with fire stuff, and you're gonna want everyone to hear it in the most high fidelity possible. So it's just something to familiarize yourself with. I'll add a little reminder to talk Zoom audio device. But for now, let's not worry about that too much. Let's just download the drum pattern book, which is under OneNote, Composition, Musical Resources, Drum Patterns. Program a drum pattern in Ableton, okay? Adjust the length of the pattern of the clip appropriately, okay? So this is what I want you to do right now. Adjust the length of the clip appropriately. Program a drum pattern in Ableton. And then after that, we haven't talked about downloading MIDI files, but maybe after you guys do this, I'll show you that. And I'll talk about this stuff as well. So anyway, off to the races. And I think this is probably the best way I can go about this right now. I remember last time I taught this class, student feedback suggested that they wished there was more in-class lab time. And so I'm trying to facilitate that now. Ironically, it's in the most bizarre of circumstances, so we'll do the best we can. So let's see. Questions? Everyone downloaded that drum pattern book?
Or when I'm trying to adjust the audio, there's not really any zoom option for me. I don't know if anyone else has that too.
Okay. So this is what'll happen when you share your screen for the first time and you click share computer audio for the first time, it'll prompt you to download some drivers and it'll auto install those drivers for you. So that is a good point to make. Yeah, it'll prompt once you share your screen. Basically, there's 3 steps. You click the green share button, and then on the bottom left of the screen, there's a share computer sound button. And then once you click that, you click the blue share button. And then that's how you do it. And then once you're done sharing, you have to stop sharing because Zoom has this weird thing where multiple people can be sharing at the same time, but people can only see one person's screen at a time. So it's like really, it's too bad that they don't allow multiple people to really share their screens at the same time. Okay. I guess I shouldn't even do anything. I don't want to distract you while you're working. So I'll just type up stuff that I haven't explained.
Hey, Professor.
Yeah.
How should I? So when I'm using Ableton, I can't hear my own sounds right now. I only did for a second, but then the Zoom's always taking over. How do I get it so I could have both? And,
Oh, when you're using Ableton, the the Zoom is taking over.
yeah.
But then when you go to,
It's on built-in output right now.
are you using a Mac?
Yeah.
Why don't you share your screen?
It says host disabled attendee screen share.
Oh, I'll have to talk to the host then. All right, try again.
Is this sharing?
Yeah, we can see it. You are.
Is it showing my Ableton screen or I have a desktop right now?
Oh, it's actually when you share your screen, stop sharing again. Just share the click the top left, the default thing. It's like all desktops or whatever because it's the most. Just click desktop one, I guess, the top left option. Okay, and now you can go to now it'll allow you to see everything. So if you go to Ableton now.
Because it's on the desktop. It's on another screen. That's why.
Oh, but what if you click Ableton? What will happen? Oh.
Try it again. Sorry.
Okay, cool. That should work.
It's on Ableton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess you know what? Maybe I'll do this. Request remote control.
You could do that.
Yeah. Now I'm controlling a screen. Okay, great. So I think at this point, oh, it's weird. So you have two monitors, and this is on your other monitor.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Open preferences.
Yeah, I'm allowing Zoom right now to gain access to it. I have to like give you accessibility.
Oh no, it's all good. You don't have to. Well, yeah, you can do it. But if you go to preferences.
Okay. Like Apple preferences or?
No, the Ableton preferences.
Yeah, I'm here.
You know what? Actually, stop sharing your screen again. Can you switch it so that your Zoom is on?
Yeah. So like put the Ableton on this screen.
Yeah. Because I think, and then you can share your whole screen because I think it doesn't like the.
Yeah. I'll put Zoom.
And just share the whole desktop one then, because that I think that's the only way I can see all the submenus and everything as well. Okay, great. So now I guess you can press Command, comma, or whatever to go to preferences. Okay. Oh, can you click the test tone button? Okay, you're getting sound. I guess exit out of the preferences. Lower the clip so it's not so expansive. Or drag the bar of the clip vertically, or the other way. No, I mean what you were doing earlier. Just expose the arrangement view.
I can't zoom in or zoom out anymore.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, like that. And then, okay, so click probably. You know what? Yeah, I guess. Can you click the track header for probably on the right? Oh yeah. Okay, so now could not ask. Okay, so it doesn't have the max device rhythmic probability. So you chose a sound that is kind of that you don't have because you haven't installed Max for Live. So what you have to do is just click another, like pick another drum kit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was confused. So I never really use drum kits. I usually just put samples into my own drum rack. So I was wondering.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You could do that too.
I wanted to try it because I never really. Yeah, all of these I don't have it.
What about wait? But, oh no. Wait, but I think you're under some Max for Live device, or can you try a different one?
Yeah. This should work.
Okay.
Yeah, it was ugly, but it'll work.
Maybe go to like just 808 or 909, just something really standard, so it'll sound more.
No.
And you already had this edition before the Mr. email.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for your case, I think you'll want to install Max for Live.
Yeah.
Is it playing now? I can't hear.
Yeah, it's really quiet. It's working now. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Any other questions, guys? How are you guys doing?
How can you install like more sounds?
Okay. It's been a little fussy to download more Ableton sounds without a license. I thought last time I taught this class, students tried to, and I was excited. I was like, here's 100 gigs, and they couldn't get it to work. But there are other cool sample packs where I can upload a few that are pretty useful. It's a really complicated question because you could install more devices, like where generators that make the sound. You can download a bunch of samples to augment existing sound, like to add more sounds itself for those devices to interact with. And I guess those are the two major things. So if I guess I'll answer the second question, and I guess I'll share my screen. How are the drum racks coming along? Maybe I could you guys can keep working. In the meantime, I'll just download something where you guys, I'll just show you a website that you might enjoy. There's a website called freesound.org. Now, we haven't talked about drum racks in depth yet. I was going to save that for next class. But what you can really do is you could download different sounds, like you could search for car, and you could listen to it. Right, that's a car, or wipers of the car. Sounds like my car. So basically, you can have all of these different sounds that you can put into your tracks. Now, there are different ways that you could use it. So one of the things I would recommend is just, so I think I was going to talk about this next class. So I'll save that. But I would experiment with just downloading sounds. Once you download a sound, you can just drag it into Ableton, and you can augment it that way. There are more sophisticated ways you can play with sounds by actually changing the sounds within the drum racks. So for instance, just to kind of give you a little preview, if I open up the device view for Ableton, for that particular drum track that I just created, the device itself will have, like, what's crazy about drum rack is it has a bunch of other devices. Each one of these drum hits is a different drum device. And they're all different, simpler devices. So what I could do is I could take that sample that I found, and I could just drag it onto one of these devices, and it'll sample that particular sound. But that is a conversation that deserves a little more in-depth discussion. It's a very important, fascinating subject. Let's see. I think I might have said that we were going to talk about it today, but you know what? I did say I was going to talk about it today. You know what? I'm going to request that people start their videos again. This always happens. People like stop their videos. So I get a sense. So I'm just like, all right, video, just so I can get a sense for how everyone's doing. How are you all doing? Are you guys programming your drum racks right now?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, great. I think if you guys are feeling success in that regard, that'll be one component of your homework assignment. So just continue making headway on that. Make it something you like. It doesn't have to be, but just keep experimenting with different patterns. You might find that as you're inputting these particular drum patterns in, the scaling is completely off. There's a quick trick for that, okay? So let's say here's what I mean. Let's say like you had the wrong grid resolution, okay? Let's say you had the wrong grid resolution and everything came in like this. You're like, hey, I did it right, but it just sounds like that. And like my drum track is like all compressed into that like one tiny region. Well, there is a shortcut. By the way, this little fold button allows you to only see the drums that you're currently working with, so that's kind of useful. If you select all of, ooh, it's fun to click all the drums at the same time. If you click all the drums at the same time, and you press multiply by 2, it'll stretch the duration of all the drums by 2. So on and so forth. Right? So let's say you followed those directions for that drum sequence totally faithfully, but it sounded like this. It just sounded too fast, right? You don't have to like change the tempo of your arrangement. All you have to do is click the little multiply by 2 or divide by 2 button, and you can even divide even more. You can do it for infinity, right? I think there's something in the chat. Okay, great. This literally happened. Vuk said this literally happened to me, so this is very useful. I'm glad it helped. Yeah, this happens to me all the time in composing in general. Like I use this in Sibelius too, my software for composition of choice. Because oftentimes I know the right ratios of, like I know I want the first thing to be longer than the second thing, and I want the third thing to be longer than the first thing. But I don't exactly know like what tempo I want it. So this is like, I use this a lot. I'll add a little footnote to this. Sorry if the OneNote becomes like really gigantic. It always happens for those who've taken classes with me. Try to keep it salient to the point though. Divide, multiply by 2, okay? So I'll try to make it so that when you actually see the template for your homework assignment, which will come out really soon, I promise, I'll try to give you relevant troubleshooting advice so that you could troubleshoot the problems that you might encounter. So far, I'm kind of extemporizing here. I've thought about it, but so far there is this component of your homework where you have to have a drum sequence. There's also going to be a component where you have to organize your favorites in a particular way. So actually, I discovered an issue with favorites. Earlier, I assigned a particular favorite to a particular color, and it didn't appear properly. I discovered that you have to expose all of the favorite folders. And by doing that, I gave you directions on how to do that. So for instance, the way I had it on my old Ableton is I organized all my drums on yellow, I organized all my basses on green. Now you can rename it so that it's more sensible. So another thing that I'm gonna have you do for your homework is to organize a collection of instruments and show me what your favorites folder looks like. So that it shows me that you've started to explore different instruments. Because that's really useful compositionally when you're like, oh, I know what sound I want. It's cheating a little bit because you're using someone else's sound, but philosophically, I feel like it's really important that we know how to be curators for the sound we want to be. It could be as involved as literally making the sound wave if you are that particular about it, or it can be like a loose general ballpark. I want this kind of sound, and ultimately the ends justify the means as far as I'm concerned. As far as, is that the way you say that statement? I don't know, but I think that ultimately find what works for you. And my hope is once you start organizing your sounds into these folders, you'll start feeling more confident to make things that more quickly that resonate with what kind of style you're looking for. Okay. How do you get the piano view after selecting the drums you want? Okay. Oh, great. There's some class discussion on this. Select the drum track and then try hitting Shift Tab. You also need a drum clip selected. So if you haven't made one, double click on the arrangement view to make a new clip. Yes, absolutely. Luke, I'm going to directly quote you on that, man. That's a really good thing to have. I'm going to create a new troubleshooting folder. I'll credit you, of course. Troubleshooting. Okay. That drum sequence book is insane. Great resource. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Okay, awesome. Great. Hope you don't mind, Vuk. Okay. It's just so concise. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay. Great. Okay, so you guys are working on that. I guess I'll talk to you a little bit about drum rack. It can get kind of deep, but it's something that you guys are going to work with a lot, so I might as well just start explaining what it is, okay? So Vuk had a good point. This is it. The question that Andy had was basically the basic distillation of the problem was comfortability with device view and clip view. And also, you need a clip before you can see the piano roll editor. So you have to create a clip first. So for instance, just to kind of recreate that process, if I'm right here and I click, there's no clip selected, right? If I press Shift Tab to go to device view, sure enough, I see the device, but I see no clip, right? So let's say I want to create a clip. You know what? There's actually a better way to create a clip of a certain length beforehand. If you select the region of time that you want, right-click that region of time, and then click Insert MIDI Clip, and then it'll create a clip of that length. Okay. Okay. So I've created a clip right here of a particular length. Again, my quantization is like really off the charts. I don't need this grid resolution, I should say. So what I have in my drum device view are all these different drums that I can actually click and play with. Awesome, right? Look at all those drums. But let's say I don't like that hi-hat for whatever reason. And I play it more, I still don't like it. Well, I can go into sounds and I can search hi-hat. In fact, you probably want to, the best place to probably look for this is probably to go to samples. So if you go to samples in the browser, that'll basically only show you individual sound files. And these individual sound files will come in handy because what you want to do is you just want to replace one sound file. Okay? So while my computer's thinking about it, it found a bunch of hi-hats. Look at that. Maybe I like this hi-hat better. Or that hi-hat. Ooh, that's a cool sound. Ooh, that's like a whole... So sometimes it's not labeled correctly. Like, oh, this is deceptive, right? This is like an entire groove, right? Let's just say I put this hi-hat in. What I could do is I could drag this hi-hat sample, which by the way has some .aif at the end, which means it's just, if you're familiar with file formats for audio files, that's just like a specific WAV file, basically. So I can drag this on to my drum rack for that particular, oh, it doesn't like me, for that particular device. And now it replaced that one hi-hat sound with this hi-hat sound. How fun, right? I could also do something ridiculous. So now if I go back to the original sound, it sounds totally different, right? Because the hi-hat sounds different. I could replace that hi-hat, just to be really dramatic here, to show you something about drum rack. I could take let's say I take like a weird sound. I type in weird into my browser. Okay. I've heard so many weird sounds that doesn't even sound weird to me anymore. Okay. Now I put this into right here. And now every time that hi-hat gets triggered, it'll trigger this weird sound. Right? It's probably not what you want, but it's there for your edification. So you can really get creative with this. The point is, you don't have to just sequence drum sounds with this. You could sequence anything you want with the drum rack. The drum rack is really cool in that, because essentially what it allows you to do is it allows you to create all the instruments you want. Basically, you could create a different instrument for every single one of these cells. How crazy is that? And then basically, whenever you get to whenever you play a specific note, it'll trigger that particular device. That's pretty powerful stuff. So by default, the drum rack comes built in with all these kind of nice sounding, default sounding kind of things. With drum sounds, more specifically. But you don't have to limit yourself to that. You could put like interesting ancillary effects, like some, if I type in beautiful or something, I don't know. You can imagine, I need to organize my samples better. You can imagine some, I also have like a huge library of loops. So if I type in beautiful, I wonder what will come in. Samples, let's see. Samples, piano, probably not what I want. I mean, that's all beautiful, but that's definitely not what I want. I was kind of imagining some sort of trippy effect that I could put on. But you could do that if you wanted to. So that's the power of the drum rack. It's a device. The drum rack exists in device view, but it's like a meta kind of construct. You can put devices within the device. That's what's really crazy about the drum rack. Okay. The drum rack is meta. I don't know if it's meta world peace, but it's definitely meta. So it's a good start. So let's see. Okay, maybe we can actually hear someone's drum. Or maybe we can just like share, like someone can share what they've done. I'll stop sharing, and maybe do we have any volunteers for someone who has something they'd like to share, and they can just kind of talk about it? Let's see.
I can go. I don't really care.
Okay, great. I don't know who said that, but.
Oh, it was me. It's Jack.
Oh, great. All right, yeah, awesome. Go for it.
How do I have to share screen?
Yeah, you click the green share button, and then there's a bottom left share computer audio, and then you click the blue share button.
Okay. So.
I believe when you click the share computer audio, it'll prompt you to download some Zoom audio device. Okay, you're on Windows.
Yes.
Hopefully this. Okay, cool. I know there's some different things with drivers, so hopefully it works okay.
Yeah. So I just messed around a lot, and it sounds like really bad, but
hey,
that was funny.
I like it. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I just clicked on stuff, but I was trying to make sure I used the grid and stuff like that to like line up the notes with like, you know, zooming in and stuff, like to like I don't know. You just put a lot of emphasis on using the grid, so I just wanted to make sure that I was kind of like make sure that I was like lining up notes correctly and stuff. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's cool. It has a little Donkey Kong vibe to it.
Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess there's something else that you could do. I guess I'll show you on your computer. If you click on the top right of the screen, there's a little keyboard icon. It's very close to where your mouse is. It's right next to the key button. Yeah, there's a little keyboard icon. Now, if you press your QWERTY keyboard, I think from ASDF, there's a certain row. If you just type in some.
Oh. Yeah, I can put people actually play.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so you could type things in that way as well. There's some peculiarities with it, but you could do that. But yeah, I like where it's going.
It's just random notes that I just put on the thing.
That's.
Yeah. I mean, I have a keyboard and a MIDI controller thing that I can.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I can't remember what's your name again?
Jack
Jack. What's your last name?
Wagner.
Wagner. And what was your musical background expertise again?
I use FL Studio to record a lot of like instruments like guitar and piano and stuff like that using like MIDI, and I have a sound box, and yeah, I've just used a lot of FL Studio, and I play guitar and piano a little bit.
Oh yeah, and you're one of the guys that's trying to maybe join ICAM, and you're gonna release that EP.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, looking forward to it, man. This is cool stuff. So just
Thank you.
keep it up. All right, man. Well, good stuff.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Is it stop?
Oh
sharing?
yeah. Stop. I discovered recently I can actually kick people.
Oh,
out.
okay.
Anyone else?
I could put mine on.
Yeah, great.
One second. Can you hear it? I can't even hear it. What did I do?
Oh, it's on Zoom. Oh, you know what? Did you click share computer sound before you shared? Because if you didn't, then no one can hear it.
Yeah, I didn't love that. Should I stop sharing it or?
Stop sharing it and then click the green share button, and then on the bottom left, click share computer sound.
Oh, cool. I threw in the audio at the end. After you're saying you could put anything on, I was like, yeah, why?
Hey, that's awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I love it, dude. That's really dynamic and bouncy sounding. What drum pattern did you base it off of?
The disco one.
Cool. That's awesome. I love it. That's beautiful, man. That's cool. And what sample did? Oh, Cinematics Vocal Essentials. Okay.
And I use basic Ableton ones for the start in.
That's groovy, man. That's groovy.
Okay.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. Any other? Let's see. Everyone looks in the zone. Okay. Okay, I guess I should also say this. This is another thing I want to talk about. Just for those who are less comfortable with music theory, I do have some resources on this. Some means for you to help you out at least. There's something called the MIDI protocol, which basically, I'm not sharing right now, am I? Let me get to the screen. Okay. So what I have here, I think it's under composition. And if you go to musical resources, and by the way, on OneNote, you can actually search for stuff. So if like you forget where something is, you can just search for something and it'll appear. If you go to musical resources under composition, the drum patterns is there, but MIDI files are also there. And basically, we've talked about how like a clip in Ableton is a container for musical sequences, but a MIDI file is also a container for MIDI sequences. So what that means is like you can download a bunch of MIDI files off the internet, like for like your favorite TV shows or your favorite movies. Like someone out there has made a MIDI file. for your particular favorite song. Like someone made a MIDI file for Bohemian Rhapsody. So if you're trying to do a remix on Bohemian Rhapsody, but you don't know the chords for how to play the song Bohemian Rhapsody, or Pirates of the Caribbean, or Star Wars, you can download the MIDI file for those particular songs. And so for instance, if I download Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, the MIDI file, it has a bunch of them actually, because it's a very popular song, so a lot of people wanted to do it. So I think if I click it, well, if I click download the MIDI file, I'll click allow, it'll download. And what I can do in Ableton is I can go to my downloads. No, it was playing automatically. What I could do in Ableton, it might do that again, hopefully not. Well, I mean, if it does, it's a great song, so I won't be too upset. What I can do in Ableton is I can take that MIDI file I've downloaded and just literally drag it on. Ooh, look at that. It created all the separate tracks. So all of a sudden, look at all those MIDI files. Man, that's a lot of MIDI. So it took all those MIDI files, and you might be thinking, and you're like, I'm going to play the song. It's going to sound so great. I'm going to play the song now. Oh, it's amazing, right? Why am I not hearing anything?
No device?
No device, exactly. I need devices on all these MIDI. Because right now I have a bunch of clips, but there's no device to play these clips. It's just the computer like wondering what to do. It's like I've got these sequences of notes. Am I going to have some weird sound playing this, some beautiful sound playing this, or am I going to have the appropriate kind of thing playing this? Now this is where it gets a little complicated, because for this MIDI file, this is a complicated MIDI file because there's so many tracks, because Freddie Mercury didn't mess around. And so the idea is you're going to have to figure out what all these things correlate to. Like this data right here, I don't know what sound, I don't know what this is. So what I might do is I might just take a particular instrument. And this might be a really, well, in some ways it's good to do an extreme example first, because the easier examples are more manageable after the fact. But I might take like bells. No. I'll take a simple chordal instrument. In fact, I'll recreate the process for doing something, for finding sounds in the browser. So grand piano, this is a sound I use all the time. I'm going to make a favorite for it, okay? In fact, I'm going to organize my favorites like this. I'm going to rename orange. Wait a second. I'm going to rename yellow. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. I have a different version of Ableton, and these are already all organized. I'm going to rename this rhythm. I'm going to rename this rhythm section instruments. What a rhythm section instrument is basically like a jazz rhythm section, like a bass, a piano player, maybe Fender Rhodes, that sort of thing. And these are instruments I use all the time. Like they're not fancy sounds. They're just sounds that work. Like you go to a jazz club, you'll hear these sounds, right? So I'm going to put my piano sound that I just found onto that particular favorite. I'm going to right-click the piano sound, grand piano. I'm going to put it under rhythm section instruments. And now it'll live here. And remember, this is something you have to do for your homework assignments, so don't forget. And now I have my piano sound here. I'm going to put a grand piano on this MIDI track. So now this grand piano will provide the device for this MIDI track. So let's see what this sounds like. Is this the real life? Did we just get MIDI to actually play? Yes, we did. We used a piano device, and now everyone probably recognized that, right? That's the beginning to Bohemian Rhapsody. It's done with vocals. It's not done with piano, right? But so what you could do is you could figure out painstakingly what all of these different tracks correlate to, or maybe the website actually labels them. It doesn't. It does give you today's refinance rate, though. And what you could do is find a simpler MIDI file, like I don't know, like Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers Land, okay? I don't know what that is. Download the MIDI file. It's going to download. Sometimes also, here's another thing. Sometimes MIDI all gets consolidated into one track, but it's kind of more flexible when it gets separated into separate tracks, because then you can put a different instrument sound for all these different sounds, right? All these different clips. So I'm going to exit, I'm going to delete this stuff. I'm going to go to Super Mario Brothers. Maybe this will be a simpler MIDI file. Let's see, drag it on there. And this one is super simple. It's just like one thing. So let's find out what this is. I'm going to put a piano on this. Right? Good old Super Mario Brothers. Gotta love it. Does it have? So, you know, you could just take this and just put it over your existing drum beat. It sounds kind of cool, actually. You got lucky. But, you know, you can have a lot of fun with this, because actually MIDI is really flexible. You can just it's very flexible. It actually, as you import the MIDI into the arrangement, it automatically applies the right tempo. It'll actually prompt you for that, I think. But for me, I said always select the arrangement tempo. I'll get rid of this thing. If I want to make this correct, I change the bass line too. But anyway, that's something worth doing. So I think what I'm going to also have you do for this particular assignment is, okay, it's all becoming clear to me now. There's a few things for this assignment. I'm kind of thinking out loud based on, well, I don't know based on what, but I'm gonna create a new section called homework. Guess homework 1. You're going to have to create a track at least a minute in length. Have a screenshot of a drum rack, a drum pattern you've made. Have a screenshot of a MIDI file that you've imported. Have a screenshot of an audio sample that you've imported. Show your favorites bar with a lot of interesting sounds. Upload, and then also on the track itself, upload track, audio, upload project file on a Google Drive link. So what I mean by that is I want you to upload the audio and the project file. Actually, this is how I want you to do it. You'll see it'll be more clear. Upload track audio onto Canvas. Upload project file as Google Drive link. Upload track on class forum. That's basically going to be the format for how you work this particular thing. So the idea is you upload your track onto Canvas, and then I can grade it and just provide feedback directly on there. You upload the project files as a Google Drive link so that if I want to download it, I can download it and open it. There are some quirks with that as well. And then you also upload the track onto the class forum. And then these are the things that I've thought of so far that I want you to include alongside, that I want you to upload as well for me to assess whether you're following along. I don't want you to fall behind. So anyway.
Professor, where's the class forum?
The class forum actually has not been made yet. It'll be made very soon. But I guess tentatively speaking, this homework 1 will be due prior to Thursday. Sorry, I can't see my top of my Finder for some reason. Okay. Okay. It's prior to Thursday, August 13th. I think that's enough time, unless you guys are feeling adventurous and you want to turn it in 2 days. Yeah, maybe Thursday, August 13th. Okay, get creative with this. You know, like don't worry about making about whether it sounds good or bad as of yet. Just like get creative, be daring, make mistakes. I can kind of comment on things if you need help. I always do. I listen to every single track that you submit, and I'll leave commentary on all of it. And yeah, it's just sort of to help you. And as you when the tracks are on the class forum, just be ultra respectful. Like just be there's no place for judgment. It's every single art form is valid. We're all just here to support each other, encourage each other, be encouraged. It's a really important thing. So it's really fun it'll be really fun to kind of explore everyone's different aesthetics and styles. So I do want to say one thing about exporting audio on Ableton is that there is a weird quirk that let's say you save your project and you're like, oh, I've saved my live set, and I'll save my live set as so-and-so somewhere in my project file, somewhere in my projects folder. And I'm like, well, I'll create one here. I'll put it in, I don't know, I'm trying to be more organized. I'll put it in house. I think I just created a folder called house. It's here somewhere. Come on. House and projects, house. Okay. So I call this Mario house. Okay. If I click save, this project will exist in that particular directory that I've just specified. Now, if I go to my Ableton projects and I go to house and I go to Mario house, you might think that that's all you have to do. You're like, oh, I'll just upload this to Google Drive and that'll be it. That's not actually everything you have to do. The reason that that's not enough is sometimes let's say you downloaded a sample and it lives in like your downloads folder. Your computer will like link to the downloads folder and know that it's there, but when you upload it, like that sample won't get uploaded, and I won't be able to open the project folder because I won't be able to see that file. So what you have to do when you save is you have to collect all and save. And basically it'll ask you, specify which media files were copied into this project, files from elsewhere, files from other projects, files from user library, click OK. And now all of those files will be saved. Just in case, for whatever reason, I don't have the same samples that you have. They'll all get saved. And now, surely, all of these particular project files will be here. And then what you can do is you can just upload this to Google Drive. And I can download it, and then I can open your project and enjoy. So that is something to keep in mind for the future.
Can you show that one more time?
Sure. Absolutely. And I have a lot of homework for myself before next class to talk about this stuff. Always behind. But what you do is you click File. First of all, you save, but you could also just bypass that just by going directly by clicking Collect All and Save. File, Collect All and Save. When you do that, you just make sure that all of these are selected. And what that ensures is that all of the other samples that you might have had in your project that might live somewhere on your hard drive get included in this folder when you're exporting. Otherwise, they might not make it. And this happens all the time. Like this happened last time I taught it. Like someone would send me a project and like half the files would be missing. It would look like this, and I'd be like, "Where is that file? It's not here." So make sure you collect all and save, and just upload it to Google Drive. And then include that link in your submission. So we've talked, how are you guys doing? 3 hours is a long time for a class. I have to, let's see. Anyone want to share anything? I don't want to go too fast because I could go on forever and then everyone will be lost, and I don't want to do that. So
if you encounter hurdles in the process of doing the homework, You said something about like office hours or something?
Oh yeah. So generally, like I'm available like right after class. Like it's the best time for me because it's still fresh in my mind. But like if that for some reason doesn't work, like we can just schedule like office hour. We can schedule a time to Zoom meet or whatever, or over email. However, whatever it necessitates, I'm up for it. So that's basically. I'm trying to think. Like I usually never end class early. Like that's not. But with a 3-hour class, on the first day, it might be good to do that. I'm trying to think what the best course of action is here.
Can I share what I got?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me if I can hear. Think. Yeah, okay.
Ooh,
Yeah.
hey, that's cool, man. I like that.
It's like a spooky. Yeah, I don't really know what it was, but yeah.
Can you full screen your screen again? I'm curious about what you
Yeah,
did.
I think the play button was like covered for me by the top controls of the sharing,
Oh,
so I couldn't press play.
you can move that away.
Okay. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay.
Oh, that's awesome.
Monster Mash music.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
I
what?
also just like was pressing random stuff, but like trying to structure like some chords here.
Yeah, I like that. I like those chords. They sound good to me.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So you have 2 tracks here. You have your chord track, and you have your.
Yeah, the Mad Mollusky, I think, drum track.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I don't know how do you say the name of the drum track once you already put it in?
I think you might have to expand the track just off temporarily.
Oh
It's
yeah.
at the bottom there in the detail view.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah,
Oh,
right
yeah, there we go. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
also a way to create track info. I forget. No, maybe not. Maybe there isn't a way. I'm getting Pro Tools and Ableton confused. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I like it.
Cool.
I
Thanks.
dig it.
Professor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question. How do you change like the sounds for each instrument that you're putting into your view, I guess? Does that make sense?
So if I understand correctly, you want to change, like,
Like-
so I have a piano sound. I want to change that to a drum sound.
No, like change like the volume of it, like how loud each of them are compared to each other.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. Volume, you have to be able to hear it, right? Okay, so with volume, in arrangement view, volume exists right here.
Oh, okay, so is it those values?
It's just those values right here. In session view, sometimes when you're mixing, it's like more convenient to see a mixer. But it's like, you'll see how actually, if I lower this to nothing, it'll actually get adjusted there as well. So that one way you might start just flirting with session view is just by messing around with levels. It's kind of convenient to use session view for that purpose, even if you don't start doing non-chronological things with it. You could mess around with that. That's a great question. Alternatively, you can use this as well. There is something else that I would say about this. There's a lot to say about volume. It goes into the realm of mixing. But if things are really soft, there are oftentimes volume controls on the instrument itself. So like, for instance, on the piano, like the instrument itself had like this volume control. So you could adjust it from there. There are also devices you could add, like for instance, we haven't talked about audio effects yet. I was going to talk about it in the next class, but a little foreshadowing. You could drag an audio effect called utility. And that audio effect will allow you to make things louder for a particular device. The way the signal flow works is left to right. So this device is here, and then this device processes everything that this device does. If I add another utility device, that utility device will process all of this stuff. If I add another utility device, that'll process everything that comes out of this thing. It goes from left to right. So this goes into this, this goes into this, this goes into this. Just a basic explanation of devices. I have more of a spiel on that for next time. But yeah, that's the basic answer to volume. I did want to, I guess, talk more about, I guess I do have some stuff to say about, move this out of the way. Composition. I didn't mention all the other things. Like, I guess you could add a lead instrument for that kind of Space Jam track that we had. A lead instrument sounds all down tempo and cool down. A lead instrument is kind of useful for kind of soaring leads and things like that. So if I go to sounds and I go to lead instruments, synth lead, they're all very bright and they're all up in your face. So if you have something like needs a solo, like there's so much latency. I don't really like that sound as much as I thought I would. Right? You can add some kind of cool melodic kind of additions to like what you have already, which is kind of fun. It's latency. I wish there wasn't latency. But you kind of want to, the idea, I guess, since we kind of talked about mixing a little bit, is you kind of want to create space for all the different frequencies. So there's low frequencies and high frequencies. And I guess like talking about it, the bass kind of takes up the low frequencies. The piano takes up the mid frequencies. The drums take up a little bit of the low frequencies and a little bit of the high frequencies. The lead kind of takes up some of the mid frequencies, some of the high frequencies. It's just you want to fill up the space so that all the different, our eardrums are kind of satisfied with all of the different sound, all the different frequency ranges. If you don't have enough of something in one range or you have too much of something in another range, it doesn't sound as good as it could. So that's kind of one of the bases for good composition too. That's why when I was creating this template of like, oh, you have all of these instruments generally, the reason that this kind of works is because by default, even if you don't do any kind of messing around with the sounds of these instruments, they kind of all sound nice together. That's why a jazz trio just sounds good, because you have the bassist playing the low stuff, you have the pianist playing the mid and high stuff, and you have the drums kind of playing all the stuff. So that's a little bit about the instruments you can use in a piece. I guess there's a lot of stuff I could say about music theory. I just taught a class on music. I love music theory. It's kind of would be foolish for me to think that I could kind of condense all of the stuff I taught in my music theory class in this class. But I guess like the basics of music is that it's very simple from the standpoint that there are 4 elements. There's high and low, meaning pitches are either higher or lower. A flute has a high pitch, a bass has a lower pitch. And intervals are your friends in this endeavor. They kind of tell you the distance between notes, so you can get from a higher pitch to a lower pitch. Like what is the like when I go da 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 is a certain distance, da da is a certain distance, da da is a certain distance, right? Knowing those distances is really helpful. Like if someone goes da 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 da, knowing that distance, like da 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 da, that's really helpful in helping you piece together the piece. So that's the high and low of it. Then there's the fast and slow of it. Like, you know, there's Flight of the Bumblebee is fast, the Funeral March is slow. Unless you put it into Ableton, of course, and do a remix, then you can change it all around, you know. you could have the fast funeral march. There's loud and soft, right? There's loud rock and roll. There's soft elevator music. Who knows? Maybe there's loud elevator music too. I don't know. Then there's timbre, right? And that's the aspect of all sounds, all instruments having their own sound, which can be studied and synthesized. And this is something we're going to talk about. This is something that a computer music software like Ableton really has a lot of strengths in. But talking about the high and low of it, understanding intervals is a really important, it's a useful thing for your endeavors. If you've never taken music before, essentially, what does this all saying? What these charts are attempting to elucidate is that you can kind of think of particular songs that you know. You can practice ear training by thinking about particular songs that you know in terms of the intervals that characterize them. So what that means is, like, if you have the song "Happy Birthday," for instance, "Happy Birthday," right? You have that distance of a major second, da 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 da, right? That's a close together interval, right? Da 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 da. Whereas if you have a song like "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," right? That's a bigger interval. Twinkle twinkle little star. It's a bigger jump, right? Whereas if you have "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," somewhere, that's a really big jump, right? Somewhere over the rainbow. So like a music theorist would really get comfortable with all of these different names. They have, like me personally, I know the names for all of these intervals. If you tell me a song, I'll tell you, oh, it uses that interval. And that's really handy to know, because if you know the intervals, you can go into the piano roll editor in Ableton and be like, oh, I have to like type in "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." I have to go like an octave. Right? It helps to know, like it helps you translate the music that you're listening to into something concrete. So this class, it's kind of outside the scope of this class, but it also isn't, because I feel like this is something that is always something that's going on in the background, whether or not you're formally studying it or not. Like, you just have to understand this concept. But then again, I've shown you ways where you can kind of not cheat, but you can kind of like download MIDI files, and like you don't have to like hear everything in your head and put what you're hearing in your head. But I will say it helps to be able to put down what you're hearing in your head. So Ableton has I guess I'll tease you with this idea. Ableton has a cool feature called audio to MIDI, which basically allows you, or my cat keeps bothering me. Where's my cat? One of my cats. All right. So Ableton has, she's not going to stop, but Ableton has this cool feature where you have audio to MIDI, where what you can do is, if you know a lot of music theory, you could like think "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." Oh, that's an octave. Da 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 da. Oh, that's an octave followed by minor second, followed by major third, followed by major second, followed by major second, followed by minor second. But that maybe not the way your brain works. Maybe that's not the way your brain's supposed to work either. But anyway, it doesn't matter, because Ableton has a way for taking what you sing and converting it to MIDI. So for instance, I could take a track right here, and I have to set my audio input correctly. Incidentally, you have to set your audio input device and audio output device correctly, right? So I'm going to set my audio input device, and we're going to talk more about this on Tuesday of next week, but I guess I'll tease you with this for now. Just in case you're curious, I have to set my audio input device to be this thing, which I know what it is because I've used it before. I have to set the appropriate channel to be this channel because I know I've used it before. And now if I do this, and I start recording on that channel, da da, oh, I didn't record enable the track, right? I have to do that. Da, whoops, oh, I'm in 2/4 all of a sudden. How did that happen? Oh gosh. Sorry guys. Let's see. Return to default. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So let's say I do this. La 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 la. Okay, that's somewhere over the rainbow. La 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 la. If I right-click that, I can do convert melody to MIDI. And now what I get is this MIDI rendition of what I just sang. La la la. That's kind of cool, right? So that like kind of eases you from having to do music, like learn music theory. It's kind of cheating, but it allows you to get. It's really, I think it's so important that you actually sing what you're hearing in your head, or like actually get across what you're hearing in your head. And like you can use theory for that means, but if like it's impractical to use theory, just get it on the page. Like sing, like externalize what you're internally hearing. Like get that out. That's who you are really. Like ultimately you have to hear it in your head for something to happen. So you can develop that, and you can convert, you can record yourself doing something. You're like, I want something like da 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 da, but I don't know how to play it on the piano. So you're like da 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 da. Let's see how good a job it does. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, so let's see how good a job it did. If I convert that to MIDI, convert melody to MIDI track. Let's see how good a job it did. It's not perfect. So you have to do a little bit of tweaking. You might be like, well, I want to quantize this for one. What grid setting do I use? Maybe this one? Maybe this is too late. Maybe this should be a C. Right? So that's kind of a hacky way to get what you want and start recording something that's in your head, right? Of course, the sound is probably not the sound you want, so you can just change the device, right? Nothing stopping you from doing that, right? So that's a little bit of what you can do. You can also do that with drum beats too, actually, believe it or not. So if I went in and I'm like, let's see what it did. So I'm going to convert drums to new MIDI track. Okay. That's kind of cool, right? It actually did a decent job. So you can do that. It depends. I remember when this came out in Ableton 9, they were like, everyone was so excited about it, but ironically, like not enough people used it. And I think that's kind of a shame because it is a really cool technology. So you could record yourself doing this stuff and really just have a lot of fun. So anyway, audio to MIDI. Okay, so I've got a lot of things that I want to make slides for, so you can kind of get a little more acquainted. And just please do let me know if anything's confusing or if you think, if you have any suggestions or anything, just I'm totally open. And I guess we'll meet again on Thursday at 11. And it's going to be another 3-hour marathon, but I guess it'll be fun. It's gonna get, you know, like this was a lot of stuff. It's gonna get more, well, it's gonna get both more refined and more specific very quickly, because we're gonna start talking about specific uses for all these things, and it's gonna get more involved. So I just stay on top of things as best as you can. I suggested that this class be a summer session class, but really it's a lot of stuff to cover in one summer. So just, I know you guys all took it because you wanted to take it, so grab the thing by the horns and just make the most of it. Yeah, I'll be around if you need any help, and I'll also put this whole video presentation on YouTube, so you could you know, you could watch in 2x speed if you want, or if you want to torture yourself, watch it at 1/2 speed, and it'll be a 6-hour video. And yeah, so guys, I'm gonna stick around. I guess I'll stop the. Oh, did I stop? Oh no. Oh no, it's still recording. Cool. All right. I will pause the recording right now.